lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we're going to be reviewing The Watchers, which was released June 7th, 2024, exclusively in theaters. Rowan, let's keep things simple this week. Were you looking forward to Ishana Night Shyamalan's feature directorial debut, The Watchers?
I don't know if looking forward to was the word. I was intrigued. I think I've said many times on the podcast that I'm not an M. Night guy. I think The Village is like the only good watching experience I had. I remember not hating that, but like I'm not a Sixth Sense guy. All the way up to like what was it, Old, that came out like during COVID.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I was like, fuck this guy. Like,
what about Knock at the Cabin?
Yeah, I'm just, oh yeah, I forgot we did that too. I didn't like that one either. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I just, the name, the last name doesn't hold a lot of weight for me. But I'm always interested, is this a case, that she's good, or is this just a Nepo baby case?
Yeah, have you seen Servant at all? You watch more TV than me, so...
Yeah, I haven't. It's on my list. I've actually heard a lot of good things about Servant.
Yeah, I think she's directed a few episodes of that, or at least was like the second unit director and whatnot for
that
okay. show. So obviously, if you saw some of that, you might have seen her talents before seeing this movie. I'm kind of the same mind as you. I feel like I'm a little bit more of a M. Night fan than you are. I like Signs as a kid. Sixth Sense is good. Unbreakable is good. The Village, I actually really liked as well. And The Visit from like 10 years ago,
yeah.
which is
I don't know why I didn't say that. The Visit's
a lot of people
my
find
favorite.
that movie. Yeah, a lot of people find that movie really cringy because of the one kind of rapping kid in the movie. But I really enjoyed that when I came out. I thought that was like a return to form for him. I also like Knock at the Cabin a little bit more than I think most people. So yeah, I was like cautiously optimistic for this. I thought the trailer, the initial one, looked intriguing. Obviously, I'm interested in any new horror director, especially one that kind of is making a movie at this budget level, just like, fresh out the gate. It kind of brings back, feelings of like the first Omen, where I was like, how the hell did this director get this sort of budget on like, their first swing at like a directorial debut, right? This one is not so much of a secret because, as you said, she's an Nepo baby, obviously. She does have some experience with directing television, but it's still like, it's a bit of a jump to go from just directing an episode or two of TV to this. So, yeah, it was the sort of thing where I was looking forward to it. I heard some murmurings that it wasn't very good, or, that the book was better, or, that sort of thing. But, still had to go check it out after a long day of work and see if it was worth the watch. So yeah, is The Watchers worth the watch? That's the question. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the trailer.
They allow us to live because we follow their rules. Do not turn your back to the mirror. Do not open the door after dark.
Let me inside.
Do not go near the burrows. Always stay in the light.
Don't you want to know what they are?
The Watchers, only in theaters June 7th, rated PG-13.
What you just heard is from The Watchers, written and directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan. And the story is as follows. When 28-year-old artist Mina finds shelter after getting stranded in an expansive, untouched forest in Western Ireland, she unknowingly becomes trapped alongside three strangers that are watched and stalked by mysterious creatures each night. Now, here on Now Slaying, we like to keep things relatively spoiler-free up front before getting into the more in-depth spoiler-filled discussion. So, Rowan, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on The Watchers?
Dakota Fanning back. That's my spoiler-free thought. Dakota Fanning back. Has she been in something good since Man on Fire?
Yeah, I was gonna say Hide and Seek.
Hide and Seek. I don't know if I ever saw that. Was that Robert De Niro?
Yeah, we should choose that for the main show. That'd be a good choice.
I've never seen that. I was like, is this
adding it to the list?
Add it to the list. I guess she was in The Equalizer 3 for the, the reuniting of Denzel Washington.
I feel like, was she in, God, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes.
The Tarantino movie? Okay.
Also that.
Yeah, I feel like she was also maybe in a Western or two that were half decent, but I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing her up with somebody else, but
Yeah, I'm always pumped to see her. I mean, honestly, spoiler-free thoughts on this. We're getting some folklore horror going on here. I will say this was shot a little more competently than I thought it was going to be. As I said, if I was looking forward to it, I just went in with like zero expectations because I was like, I feel like on name alone, like she could go in and just shit the bed on this and it wouldn't really matter. But I will say, like, I thought it looked pretty good.
I agree.
Ireland, just like high on my list, like recently for places I feel like I gotta go visit now. Just looking gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I thought like the filming locations were one of the big, positives of the movie, and the cinematography. I liked how they did a lot of that really long lens photography.
Yeah.
Where they really pulled the camera up and like put it way back in the trees or up on the hillside, and it definitely it gives this feeling of being watched. And I just very much like that sort of framing where, kind of what you're watching is just like a little small, piece of like this huge image. Yeah, I thought a lot of it was very pleasing to the eye. The visual effects, on the other hand, less pleasing to the eye. But in terms of the framing and the cinematography and the camera movements and all that, I thought it was actually a big step over most of her father stuff that I can remember of recent memory for sure. Like it felt a lot more technically competent when I was watching it.
Yeah, I will say, I feel like maybe she's got a little better eye than him. I mean, that's not really a surprise. I'm sure, she was probably raised on horror, which, I mean, I'll get in the spoiler section. I mean, there's lots of homages to different horror, like iconic horror movies in this. So I was like, obviously her references are pat, they're sound, they're pat, they're down. Yeah, I thought overall, like, this was way too long. It's like 2 hours, and, I thought it was kind of funny, because when I came out, I was texting Trevor and Willow, and they were in your screening of it. Yeah, we were kind of saying, like, this would have been a really cool, like, Twilight Zone episode or something, like, in a 40-minute kind of section. But you could just, like, throughout this whole film, I just felt like there were so many logical points it could end. And,
Agreed.
And it just kept going and going. And
almost like comically so as well. Like, it almost feels like a parody by the end of it where it goes. And I was just like, when's this going to end? I almost felt like I was trapped, that I was going to be there for like another hour checking this out. You said this is 2 hours. It's only an hour and 42 minutes, I believe.
Felt like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I know. That's the thing where it's like the pacing of this is insane as well. It's just like this glacial pace that I was along the ride for a good portion of it, just purely once again because of like the technical competency of the movie. And I actually did like the score as well. Is it a horror score? Not really. It's more of like this fantastical getting swept up in like an adventure sort of score. But I thought it was, it was nice. It was a decent score, maybe not what I was expecting, but it was just like, once again, it was one of those movies that it just kept spinning its wheels. It wasn't really going anywhere. A lot of things that they set up were like dropped as the movie went on. Like, for example, like, this is a very minor detail, but the character is vaping in basically every single scene for the first probably like 3 or 4 scenes of the movie. Then all of a sudden it's just dropped. She doesn't vape the rest of the movie, which is like, okay, Colton, who cares? You don't need to see the character vaping. But it's like, no, but like, she was using it stylistically, and it was like a point of the character. It's just vaping. It's not a big deal, but it was something I noticed. Similarly, like, there's a bird in the movie that basically it's used in the first probably 10 minutes for the character to just kind of talk to herself. She's basically talking all of her thoughts out loud to this bird in just like probably the most terrible dialogue I've heard in a while. And it's just an excuse to kind of externalize all of her thoughts to the audience. And similarly, not in a spoiler way, the bird just kind of gets put in the background and it's not really a focal point. It's never really fleshed out after kind of it serves its purpose in the beginning of the movie. And then also the character has an interesting trait of where she has like this flair for the theatrical. She likes to like take on different personalities. She even dresses up in costume, goes out and, goes out to the bar and maybe picks up people, that sort of thing. And it's like the plot of the movie where you're performing for this audience on a stage. I was like, why wasn't it more theatrical? Why wasn't it more fun? Why didn't this sort of premise go places, like commenting on like filmmaking and having to put on a performance and all this stuff and different personas and stuff? Where it goes is just like not at all what I was expecting. Where it goes, I think, is like pretty dumb. And the more it kind of peeled back and revealed what it was about, the more I was just like looking at my watch and like couldn't wait to leave the theater.
Yeah, well, and I think, my biggest kind of, issue with it was like there's definitely like this tonal shift as we kind of go on in the third half of the story where, you kind of have like this interesting premise, like horror.
The third half of the story. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, the third part. Yeah.
I mean, because it kind of switches like straight up from, this kind of like horror folklore thing to like almost like a fantasy, just like kind of action-y movie. Like I didn't feel like I was in a horror movie anymore.
There were parts that like literally feel like, I don't know, a Harry Potter movie or like a Hobbit prequel or like, just like a bad like Fantastic Beast sort of level. Like when I was watching it, that I was just like, what is this? And it's like they're still trying to do like a jump scare with a CGI raven or something, but then it's also like getting swept up on this magical adventure. It was just a very strange tonal shift that there were moments in this movie that I was like, why are we even reviewing this on the show?
Yeah, it was just bizarre. And I mean, the sad part is you didn't even describe like all of the, there's so many instances in this of like long scenes of exposition of things that never come back, that have no bearing on the story.
Oh yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to spoil some of the the scenes of long exposition. I do think one was pretty interesting, and I was like, oh, okay, I like this one. It's kind of revealing a little bit more about like the creatures or whatever that I thought was interesting. But once again, it's just like it goes and goes and goes and goes, and it's like this was a cool visual for 5 seconds, kind of draped in shadow, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of a creepy explanation of what this is. Then it's like, okay, nope, we're lingering on it. Okay, we're showing more of it. Okay, nope, full turn on to the camera. It's just like it's weird. It's the sort of thing where I liked a lot of this technically. I like her eye. I even liked the actors involved, like Georgina Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of some of the stuff I've seen her in, and Dakota Fanning, she has a soft spot, hide and seek.
Yeah, hide and seek. There you go.
But the older woman in this movie, how do you feel about her? Was she in something we saw recently? Was she in like Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, I was gonna bring it up. She's basically like, I don't know, the new like horror icon. She's in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Okay. She's in Tarot that me and Jill did. She's in The Northman. She's in Mandy. Like, she's been all over the It's Ladies podcast over the years.
Okay, she looked very familiar to me, and for whatever reason, I just kept picturing her in Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah,
Massacre.
she plays Sally.
Okay, and that must be why. But I thought she was terrible in this. Like absolutely terrible. I couldn't stand her in this movie. And they give her like this kind of like heightened dialogue where she's almost like, once again, speaking in almost like fantasy terms, like,
yeah,
dare not wander into the woods at night or something, right? And it's like, okay, cool. If we were watching like Amazon's Lord of the Rings series, that would be like at home. But like in this, what I thought to be a horror movie is just really out of place. So yeah, it's the sort of thing where I wish she was working with better material, or I wish maybe it was written by somebody else, or she just went a different way than this went. I think a lot of kind of what they're poking at here that's probably better discussed in the spoiler-filled section is interesting, and you could have done it a little bit more intelligently or a little bit more metaphorical than quite so literal what they do in, like, you know, once again, the third act or the second half of this movie.
Yeah, well, and I did see that at the end, I think it was the end. I don't think they did it it was the end. That, so Sean is credited as, like, she wrote the screenplay, like, adapted it for the book. So I was kind of curious because I was thinking, like, maybe that was some of the issue where this, like, I looked it up. This is the first thing that she's written or adapted that, like, if you go on Letterboxd, you look at her profile, the only other thing she's done other than this and Servant is she did, like, additional directing for Old, and that's it. That's all her credits. So, you know, like, the writing, yeah, wasn't great, and I was just kind of like, maybe this is a case where she needs to, like, kind of stick to, you know, the vision of it and have someone a little more competent, like, write something for her. Because I would be very interested in seeing, like, maybe, like, a more fleshed out, more actual horror folklore, thing shot by her.
Yeah, I agree. I think similar to her father, they just need to, like, relinquish the writing duties. It's just, I couldn't get over just how bad most of the dialogue was in this. Like, I didn't care for really any of the characters. They really try and make you care for Dakota Fanning with all these, like, flashbacks and obviously trauma in the character's past and all this sort of thing. It's just, it's also poorly handled. She has a very good grasp on the visuals and kind of the vibe and picking, like, you know, good locations and interesting shot composition and all that stuff, a good cast. This should have been kind of like a home run, but the writing is so bad. Where the story goes is, like, laughable at times, and it's just too long. Like, once again, it's just too long. You know, it's...
This seemed to be like an hour
Twilight
20.
Zone. Yeah, I'm thinking like 80 minutes or so. It's just like, it winds up getting into this holding pattern where we're watching them kind of go out into the forest, rummage around, come back for night for this performance where they largely just stand and look at, like, a mirror of themselves and don't really do anything. And then we repeat that, and we'll do that like 4 or 5 times. And then, you know, finally something will happen, essentially. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know why they thought that was a great structure for the movie. It's, I don't know. It's the sort of thing where it's like, I don't know where I ultimately fall on it, so maybe I'll figure it out as we discuss, like, the spoilers. But for me right now, like, I don't know if I'd recommend it really, like, to go out to the theater. It's just, I thought it'd be a pretty boring time. Maybe it's just I had a long day of work, you know. I've been up since like 6 a.m. and recording this at like 11:30, so it's just maybe I'm just too tired for this, but I found it very boring, a slog to get through. I was interested for maybe the first 30 minutes, and after that, I was like, well, where this is going is not really for me and not what I expected. Would you recommend checking it out in theaters?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably hold off on this one, I feel. I mean, before we go anywhere, I totally forgot about it because we had a couple people say that they always want to hear the theater experience. And I lied to Instagram. I said I had empty theater, but everyone walked in late on this one.
So that it's weird, like, when I bought my tickets, I bought them probably like an hour and 20 minutes before the screening. Yeah. It was empty. It was just me. I picked the spot right in the middle.
Same.
I had like one empty seat behind me, like in terms of like a broken seat. And I was like, that's choice. No one could sit behind me. I don't know. I guess Willow and Trevor were in there somewhere in the back. There was 2 people that kind of like left during the screening and then came back. So 2 people like ran to the washroom. So I don't know. There's probably 5 people in my theater. It certainly wasn't a sold out Thursday night.
I think I had like 8 or 10, but I was the same boat. Like, I actually bought my ticket later. I bought it like when I was about to walk in. I just went on my phone, bought it. No one had any tickets bought. So I was like, sweet, I'll sit in the middle. And I think I probably had 10 or so people. But yeah, like one guy off towards the front on the side, he checked out like 40 minutes. He just was on his phone playing Pokemon Go in the theater. He was done.
Sick.
Yeah.
Did he catch anything,
I
worth
couldn't
talking about?
see. I should have had my glasses on. I'm sure Exilio will get after me about that one, but it looked like he was having a good time. So, I mean, at least he was having a good time, Yeah, don't go see this in the theater unless, I went. I had some pretzel bites. They were delicious. That was worth the visit. But, yeah, no, maybe wait till this one comes to streaming. Which, like I said, when we get in the spoiler section, it makes me very sad. It's a very sad not recommend because I wish it was better because I do actually think that she's got some talent.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see her work with better material. If she gets there herself, writing and doing multiple drafts and gets to something good, great. But I think maybe just work with someone who's a well-established writer and keep all the technicals, the same. And I think you'd have a better movie, tighten it up a little bit. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend rushing out to see it in theaters either. And so neither of us are recommending you do that. With that, I think it's time to cut to the spoiler discussion for The Watchers. We are now in our spoiler discussion for The Watchers, so if you have not seen The Watchers, it's time to tune out and come back once you've seen the movie, or keep listening if you simply don't care. Rowan, I feel like I'm mixing up all my words this episode. I can't read anything on this script. I'm just mixing up all my thoughts. Take it away. Kick off our spoiler-filled discussion. Save me from myself.
I mean, I feel like I could have said this in the spoiler-free section, but I did want to touch on the music just a little bit more, where...
What the hell? I mentioned the music.
I know, and I blanked out. I'm kind of like this movie. I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place, just like this movie. No, I was just going to say, I needed to comment that it was just weird choices where, like, the score was all right, and then they were, like, doing, like, old-timey music, but then they were also doing, like, current music. It was just, like, a lot of jumble of different kinds of music that I thought didn't tonally fit at all together. Like, I was just like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, you probably could have just kept it as, like, this folklore score, and that's pretty much it. But I don't need to hear, like, a pop song immediately followed by, like, some bad impression of, like, Mumford and Sons or something, and then, like...
I don't even remember any licensed music in this. I just remember as I was storming out of the theater, it was, like, weird fantasy music.
Then there, she's the character in it. What was her name? The one from Barbarian. Georgina plays Sierra is her name, but she's obsessed with
Kira.
Is it Kira? Oh, it smells.
Yeah, that's how it's pronounced in the movie. But anyways, yeah.
I mean, Kira, likes to dance. She's just dancing to a song that I'm pretty sure this is like a song from Insidious or something. It's just like a creepy old-timey song. But, I mean, biggest spoiler for me, we got my favorite Fanning sister in a quick appearance at the end there. So I was pretty pumped about that.
Wait, which one was
Elle Fanning played the sister. She's uncredited, but that was her that played the sister.
I don't think so.
On Letterboxd, she's listed.
Really?
Yeah.
I just thought it was Dakota Fanning again. Like, they did the thing where both of them were in the, the same shot, and one of them had, like, a scar on their face.
No, that was Elle Fanning. I'm pretty sure she's credited in the film.
Keep talking. I got to do some Googling.
You look it up.
I don't know.
I can tell you for a fact, I'm pretty sure it was 100% Elle Fanning on the voice message also. But, yeah, big Elle Fanning. Obviously, Neon Demon. What was that other great movie she was in? The one that was, like, kind of about, like, American Idol, but in like some other country or something. That one was a great movie also. This is me just vamping on the podcast now about Elle Fanning. But yeah, she's I'm telling you, man, she's on Letterboxd. She's listed. But yeah, you know what? I will say I've got to give some big respects to Ishana Night Shyamalan, because I came into this expecting like an M. Night twist. I was like, if there's a twist in this movie, I'm gonna fucking flip out.
Well, she'll essentially ruin her career if it was that, right? Like if she did the same thing her dad did and there was this huge like movie upending twist in the third act, right?
Well, and this was my issue with the length. Like it kept going and I'm like, oh shit. Like they're gonna try to do some, especially when, we get these guys escaping the woods and then they're out in society again. I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna do something where like they're not really twisted.
I thought it was gonna be they're all riding on the bus and all the people on the bus are fae or changelings because they casted them all to like be asymmetrical.
Yeah.
Like their faces weren't like right. And I was just like, is this going to be the end of the movie where like your three heroines are sitting in the back of the bus and it's like, where are we going? But wherever we're going, it's like Fae country. I honestly thought that's where it was going. And then when it just cuts away and it's like, tomorrow I'm going to visit the university. And I was like, what? Okay, who cares? And then it's like actually just like her going and visiting the old professor office and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, we have like lost the plot. Or maybe found the plot or stayed on the plot. But I mean, like, the thread that I cared about at all in the movie, it's, like, long gone.
Well, and that was kind of the issue throughout this movie is there was a lot of, like, explain what we're doing before we do it, and then we do it. And then by the time you're doing it, you're like, well, I don't really care now. Like, you've already explained all that. Now, I will say, I said in the spoiler-free section that, she did have, like, some homages to other iconic, horror movies. So, me and Trevor were geeking out when we were talking about, obviously her, working in the pet store with the yellow bird, has to deliver it to, like a remote village area. So, obviously this is... if it's clicking with anyone, this is like the beginning plot lines of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. This is exactly, the plot of The Bird. She's got to bring a yellow bird to like a remote area. And, obviously, bird things ensue in The Birds. And kind of bird things happen in this one.
Well, the birds are supposed to like factor in strongly to it, but it's just, I don't know, what is it? They guide you out of the forest and...
But they don't even follow those birds. They follow the yellow bird, which like... Yeah, so it didn't really make... And this was more of this like... things that you're like, oh, I better remember this. Kind of like when she first gets lost in the woods and then, she's going to pick flowers and stuff when she first gets there, with one of the other people. And then that person's, describing like, oh, this is this flower. This stops bleeding and swelling. And like this flower, when you're sick and you feel like you're going to throw up or you have a headache, like I can make a paste and you won't do that. And so I'm intaking all this information like, all right, this blue flower that they focus on, the color of it, I get a close up of it. This stops bleeding and swelling. So obviously, there's something's going to happen. But guess what? I didn't need to know any of that scene because it didn't matter. We never see Kara fucking doing anything with the flowers. Like, she never administers these to anyone just in passing by. She simply just says, this is what it's for. And, like, this was kind of the issue where there has to be something lost in that, like, translation from book to film. Because I was like, this feels like this is stuff out of the book or something that probably plays a factor in the book, but they didn't add it in. And I'm thinking especially where, we got like these fairy changeling things. Like I'm sure there's like, I don't know, flower seems like it'd be in some sort of fantasy horror thing or I don't know.
Yeah. How did we feel about the changelings or fairies or fae or, halflings, whatever you want to call them? How did we feel about them as like the monsters in this movie? Can you take them seriously? It's weird. For me, I have like this weird hang up that like once you start calling them fairies and like they're this magical folk. I'm just kind of like, it's very hard to make that scary. I'm instantly picturing like Tinkerbell in my head, you know? Like I have like a weird hang up with it.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that from most people. I don't have a huge issue with it. Like, I do know that, like, especially in, like, Irish lore and, like, you know, older folklore, like, fairies are actually, like, supposed to be super vicious and, like, you know, not the Disney imagining of them, which I'm fine with, but, like, this is giving me, like, I don't know, man, like Twilight vibes, where it's like, you know, we get this whole big backstory of how they, like, lived with humans, and they even married humans, and, you know, had interracial or interspecies babies, and it's just like, I was like, what the fuck is going, like I said, I felt like I was in a Twilight, like, book or something.
There's these long scrolls of just, you know, exposition and all these, like, painted tableaus and whatnot. I'm just like, bro, I'm so checked out of this movie. I've been checked out for 40 minutes now. What are we doing here?
Well, and to me, this took away from any kind of threat of these fairies, because you're like, oh, well, like, humans wronged them, and so they're like, you know, they want to, like, right this wrong and whatever, blah blah blah, where I'm like, if you had to just kept them as, like, monsters, they were just like fairies, they're monsters, they're just fucking capturing humans for their entertainment, and then eventually, you know, killing them or you know, morphing into them and then killing them so they can go live in the world. Like, to me, that makes sense, but yeah, when I'm getting into this, like, Twilight / underworld kind of fucking, like, romantic fantasy lore stuff, yeah, I'm kind of checked out by then, and they looked like shit. Like,
yeah.
This is why, another reason, you know, me and Willow and Trevor were talking about, like, they probably would have been better off making this, like, an episode on a TV show, because at least then you'd show little to no fairy, and you'd have a reason for them to look this bad.
This movie is just way more interesting if it's Dakota Fanning gone off into the woods, seeing someone in the forest that kind of looks like her mother, dealing with their trauma, you know, basically at the end of the movie. You can even have the Watcher thing where, you know, they're performing and whatnot. She's putting on different personas. She's using her theatricality, different costumes, all that stuff, making do with what they got. And by the end of the movie, they're all killed off. She falls in the hole. And when she emerges, we don't know if it's a changeling or if it's Dakota Fanning putting on another persona and kind of like getting over her trauma and just choosing to live a different life. Like, I don't understand why it has to be so explicit where it's like, we go back to the city, we do all this research, we go check on this person, we gotta wage a war on Madeline, but oh, thankfully it's not Madeline in this house, it's Kira. It's like, you know, a fairy is posing as her, and then she comes in and there's a stupid action scene, and then wings sprout and they fly away, and I'm just like, bro, what am I watching? What am I watching? This has gone so wrong that I'm just so checked out. There's a movie from a few years ago, and I'm an A24 fanboy. The Hole in the Ground. What is it about? A kid wanders into a hole in the ground. It's about changelings and fairies. His mom goes looking for him. The kid comes back. The kid is weird, and she doesn't know if it's her kid or not. That's good. That's what I want for fairies. I think they wind up going into the hole, and there's some weird little, almost like The Descent type fairies in there, and
which,
you know, maybe
I thought that's where they
were
going with this.
Yeah, and I was like, that's cool. I'm fine with that. You know, keep it simple. I don't need like all these like weird, stretchy, lanky CGI, fae and all this stuff. It was too much. I liked the one time when essentially it was Madeline was explaining kind of this backstory of how she saw one day, and it was kind of like turning back, and you saw a little bit of her face and about how she was describing it like it's an imperfect version of you, but it's getting close to that version. And then, you know, all the proportions are stretched out and it has one too many fingers and stuff like that. Honestly, at that point in the movie, I was like, wait, is this movie going to be like a critique on AI? Is it going to be talking about like human artistic expression, but like when these watchers or when these creatures try and replicate it, it's close, but it's never the same. I was like, that'll be interesting. I don't know. Maybe you could read something in there. I didn't get that by the end of the movie, but there were points in this movie where I was like, there are interesting threads here you can pull at, and I felt like they never pulled at them. And then that specific scene, they just keep going on and on with showing the creature in more and more detail, and it's just like, once again, it winds up being not remotely scary because it's like we've been looking at it for 30 seconds now with all this exposition. Whereas if it was like 1 or 2 seconds where it's even so much like you don't know, like you don't register how the visual effects look because you're still kind of buying into the idea and the concept, and it's so quick.
Yeah.
It would be much better.
This needed to be more of like a cat and mouse game where we're not seeing the watchers, but we know they're tormenting them. Because like I said, like all the watching stuff, all the stuff in this like cabin, I was like, I'm cool with this. Like I think it's weird. I think it's interesting. Like, we don't see these creatures. We kind of get like outlines of them running. We don't really know why they're doing what they're doing. They're watching some bad Big Brother reality show. Yeah. That's great. And like we just keep hampering on. It's like, that's the movie, Cutter. And then, but no, we got to stretch it out into fucking underworld blood wars here or something.
Yeah, it's also just better as like a chamber piece or like a single location movie as well. Like, don't get me wrong, let them wander through the forest, but then for whatever reason they're locked in that room and they have to put on a performance, and like, the conflicts are rising, and obviously it feels like, oh, maybe some of this conflict's manufactured for entertainment. Someone's off, Once again, it's just like I needed more double crossing, more conflict. I needed people being like different characters. I needed all of that, especially when a movie is about changelings and taking different identities and all that. It's just so boring for everyone to just kind of be so milquetoast and boring.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's a very strange choice. And even like conceptually, I like the idea of like the watchers watching them watch bad reality television, and they're kind of watching these people like living out like terrible moments of their lives, or like the drama, or like, oh my god, this guy liked one girl but now he likes the other girl, like shit like that, like going from 2 different versions of essentially the same person and whatnot. I like all this conceptually, but it's like I feel like the movie has nothing to say about it all. It's all these like little seeds of ideas that are never nurtured.
All you got to do is look at, when we talk about, they're in the woods, they keep seeing, like Mina keeps seeing, her mom and her sister and her when they're young, and, they're, oh, the forest plays tricks on you and all this stuff, which, they explain everything else, but no one wants to explain why they keep seeing this trauma. And guess what? It doesn't fucking matter, because she sees her mom, she sees all this stuff. She never really deals with it. She fights a fairy, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I get it now. I'm fixed now. I fought a fairy, and now my like mom issues are dealt with. Like, I just felt like there was no, it's just another, thread that they just don't pull at on this. And it's just, there's so much of this that it's just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're never going to deal with it. All they care about is fighting fairies.
Yeah, they try and make it matter. Like, of course, they do, like, the emotional music swells as we do the hard cut to the flashback where we see more of it and see her sisters involved and her mom and all that stuff. But yeah, once again, it didn't really work for me. And apparently I never even noticed Elle Fanning was in this movie. So you're telling me Elle Fanning in that scene near the end was the sister with the cut on her face?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to assume... She's listed as uncredited Elle Fanning.
I know, but it's only on Letterboxd, and anyone can edit that shit. So
maybe I did.
I don't know, dude. It just looked like Dakota Fanning to me. I could be crazy.
I mean, maybe like I said, it really did sound like her on the phone call. Maybe she just did the phone call, and which I'm sure they were like, hey, we'll give you $200 if you leave a voice message.
$200.
I mean,
Elle Fanning is like. I don't know if she like checks her phone for $200, but
I mean, maybe she got like a sister discount. Dakota's like, you gotta do this for me. She's like, this is turning out really bad and really long. Leave me a voicemail. Do it for the low. But yeah, I mean, Like I said, it's just this was a mess that needed to be trimmed.
With that, should we just get into reviewing this?
Yeah, let's just rate it.
So if you're new to the podcast, our review rubric is nay, okay, yay, or slay. So Rowan, what would you give The Watchers? Dude, I've been doing that the whole episode, but go for it. Yeah.
You know what? It's a beautiful day in Nova Scotia today. It was a beautiful night. I'm gonna give it a weak okay because I'm feeling nice, and I'm only giving it an okay on the fact that I think, or at least I'm hoping, that the next project that Ishana works on might be a little better. And I will say, if anything, I came out of this being like, yeah, I want to check out what she does next. Hopefully she figures some of the stuff out, takes the critiques well. Everything I've seen, I don't think many people are liking this movie. All the advanced stuff on it is not looking great. But I think she does have talent. And I went in, like I said, I am not a fan of the Shyamalan brand. So I was not looking forward to it, and I was worried it was going to be just like that, and I think she has the possibility to be far better than him, just with the right material, because I think she's got an eye. She just needs to, hone it in. So, you know what? I'm feeling a light okay, just for the promise of maybe it'll be better. I don't even know how to explain that one. It's like a light okay for her, but just a nay for the movie in general. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm pretty much on the same page. I might lean the other way and give it a nay, just because I want to emphasize how much I dislike the actual movie, but I very much like the technicals of the movie. So that's the thing. Once again, I agree with completely what you're saying, that I believe she can make a much better movie than this. She just needs a better writer, needs to be edited a little bit more tightly. Maybe cut down on how many VFX you need. I don't know why we need 100 CGI ravens flying around and stuff. It's just, I don't know why we need 20 Watchers. I mean, it would have been just as scary if there's only a couple of them, right? There's just, there's choices like that where it's just you're really stretching your budget, and I don't really understand to what effect. So yeah, there was a little bit of things she can definitely improve on. I didn't hate it. This is one of those ones that I'd say it's mediocre. On my Letterboxd, I'm probably gonna give it a 2.5, right? I wouldn't lean that it's bad, but I also don't want to watch it again. So with you giving it a light okay, I'm gonna give it a strong, it's teetering right on an okay for me as well. But I'll lean the other way and say it's a light nay.
It'll even out nicely. So
exactly, I can't have it coming up as 3 or 3.5 stars or something on the Letterboxd for us. I gotta lean the other way, and it'll be closer to what we really feel. And if you made it this far in the show and you're not following us on our socials already, you can do so at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, /, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Stephen, Joy, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show, Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan.
Yeah, no.
This weird music, nothing's making it, right?
Nothing's making it from this one, but go over to the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go into the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload licensed music or scores from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So yeah, go follow that. Listen to some good horror movie music, and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
And next time on the show, we're going to be covering The Exorcism.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Russell Crowe. Will he be having a funny, what was it, Latin accent? What sort of Italian accent? What was he doing in that movie? Will he ride a Vespa? The Pope's exorcist? There's a lot of questions here. We're going to get into it on the show. So yeah, keep your eyes and ears peeled for The Exorcism, probably coming your way in a few weeks. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.